I'm live. All right, welcome to GridironStuds Live Weekly. Still an impromptu gathering on a weekly basis. I have a mic here somewhere. I probably should use that, shouldn't I? Yeah, I think I should. Let's see if I'm able to do that. I'm probably not. Maybe it'll sound better if I use the mic. Anyway, what are we talking about today? Of course, talking about the Super Bowl, because that's what everyone was talking about. And I'm of the thought that Super Bowl should be here every year. Who's with me on that? Had a good time down here. The weather was great. And Miami just seems like a Super Bowl type of town. All right. You guys just bear with me as I try to get this hooked up right here. But nevertheless, this is just me being me. But anyway, really think the Super Bowl should be here every year. I don't know if this makes things any better. Probably still going to be an echo. Like I said, I'm looking like a rookie on this particular thing. But hey, listen, share some thoughts on the Super Bowl. I thought San Francisco had that thing. Were you with me on that? I really thought I thought they were going to have it. But nevertheless, they did not pull this thing off. All right. What's up, Les? Thanks for joining. My man Les, I think he had I'll get to your Richard Sherman question in a minute. Man, it's tough being a defensive back, but nevertheless, we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I thought San Francisco had that thing, but in the way they have the entire season, or at least the entire postseason, Kansas City was able to come back and win the football game and did it from behind. So I didn't think if they got behind a team like the San Francisco 49ers, they would be able to pull it off the way that they did, but they did. But I will tell you, the whole game, the entire game turned on a 3rd and 15 conversion. That really changed the game. And, I broke this down in the All Eyes DB Camp members area about exactly what happened on that play. And initially, when you look at it, you're just like, man, that cornerback made a boneheaded play, and you're ready to throw everything on Emmanuel Mosley, who quite honestly didn't have a good game. It kind of seemed like the moment was a little too big for him. So he didn't look like he did at times during the season, where he forced himself in the lineup and forced Witherspoon out. But on that particular play, it's a genius play, really. Subtle things that happen on a play. And so, it's what caused that play to be what it is. So basically the number 2 wide receiver started heading for the post, which was Tyreek Hill. And, without getting into too much detail on it, if you want complete detail on that, feel free to join me in the All Eyes DB Camp members area. I think I'll post a link to that, to the All Eyes DB Camp members area. If you're a DB and you're not a member of the All Eyes DB Camp members area, then you're really just cheating yourself. And I'm not just saying that because I own the company. I'm telling you, I don't want to say it's free game, because the membership costs, but for what you're paying and what you're getting back, man, it's all value. The kind of stuff you're learning by being in there is just, there's guys that pay a whole lot more for that kind of information. So let's just leave it at that. A genius play call and little intricacies built into it by Andy Reid that disturbs the reads for the defensive back. And lo and behold, it worked at the time that it really needed to. 3rd and 15, you're down 10, you're getting into, I want to say 6-7 minute mark of the biggest game ever in your life. And they pulled it off and hit a deep ball and eventually went down and scored. And the whole momentum of the game changed on that. So let's get to Richard Sherman. Listen, I understand that Richard Sherman talks. And so it makes people want to come for him when there's any type of setback. Can we call it that? Can we call what happened with him and Sammy Watkins a setback? He gave up a deep ball when the Chiefs were down 20-17 that led to the go-ahead touchdown. Listen, I've been watching this for a while. Obviously, maybe I'm sensitive to this because I train defensive backs, and both of my kids are defensive backs, and both of them are, playing on the grand stage. One plays in the pros. One plays for a very well-known college football team, the Florida Gators. And to me, it's like we get into every weekend, and the moment you give up a pass, people are going crazy about it. And I'm just like, what's going on? Did everybody bet on this game or something? Like, why are you that emotional over one play in a football game? Okay, Richard Sherman gave up a deep ball to Sammy Watkins. I will add that it was in an inopportune time. I'm not sure what he was doing on the play. I'm guessing that Richard Sherman is a guy that plays on a lot of hunches. He does a lot of film study. He's a very educated player. He's smart. And in that particular situation, there was a little bit of, for lack of a better term, foolery at the line of scrimmage. And he decided to jump inside. I think he expected an in-breaking route, whether that would be a dig or a curl or something like that. It looked like he jumped inside to try and take that away. And unfortunately, that's not the route that was run. It was a fade by Sammy Watkins. And if you make a misstep on Sammy Watkins, he's really not going to come back. Okay, on most cornerbacks, 99.9. I would struggle to think of anyone who would be able to make back up ground on Sammy Watkins once he gets a step or two on you. Richard Sherman, certainly not that guy. That's not his game. And so, nevertheless, Richard Sherman got beat on that play, and now he's going to have to take his lumps, so to speak. And, really, if you're dishing it out the way Richard Sherman will dish it out, he's willing to argue on Twitter and on social media with people. I guess you've got to be able to take it back. Haven't heard much from Richard Sherman, nor have I heard from anyone from the San Francisco 49ers, and that's typical. You just don't hear from the runner-ups in the Super Bowl very much in the days after it has happened. So the 49ers have folded into the darkness, and it's all Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and there'll be a bunch of kids born within the next 3, 4, or 5 months in the Kansas City area that will be named Patrick. There'll be a bunch of 10, 11-year-olds that will cut their hair into a mohawk. There'll be some grown men that will do that too. They'll pull up to the supermarket somewhere in Kansas City, which is located in Missouri, by the way. I didn't realize that was such a tough thing to understand, but that will pull up to the grocery store and they'll have a mohawk on. Big grown men who shouldn't do that will be running around with mohawks in honor of Patrick Mahomes, who has brought the Super Bowl championship back to Kansas City after 50 years. So congratulations to them. Again, I did not pick them. You know me, I'm into defense, and I thought the 49ers had the better defense, which they did. They had the better defense for 55 minutes in this game, 54 minutes in this game, and the final 6, 7 minutes, they just went sideways. And that was enough time for an explosive offense, like the Kansas City Chiefs and guys like Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins to operate and get down the field and score. So that's that on the Super Bowl. And that's really my little summary on Richard Sherman. Sometimes you get beat. He got beat at a really, really bad time. Somewhere Michael Crabtree was laughing and Darrelle Revis was having a nice drink on that. So who knows? And same thing might have happened to Darrelle Revis in that game. Who knows? Maybe not. Who knows? But nevertheless, that's the way that it goes down. So no, I don't need more from Nick Bosa. He played outstanding. He is a force. I'm sure much of the game plan was on neutralizing him. He is really difficult, and he is to that quarterback's blind side. And so I'm sure they made really good plans. I haven't really dug into the film to really look at what was happening along the lines of scrimmage. You know, I watched the game as a fan, so that means I watched where the ball was going, but I will pull the tape out later and dig a little deeper in and watch what's going on in the trenches, because that's where the real game is. Most fans don't realize that, but that's where the game is won and lost. So I'll look a little deeper into that, and perhaps I'll change some opinions on some things that happens. But anyway, happy signing day eve. Listen, I'm still trying to figure out the effects and maybe the positives of the early signing period that we have in December. I know this. I think the December signing day, without question, has taken the luster away from the February signing day. I just know, growing up and going through it with my two boys, that everything was geared towards this February signing day. Maybe I'm off on that, but it just seems the fact that in the last 2 cycles, the teams involved, the major teams, have all but sewn up their entire recruiting class in December. So, you know, what's really left to do during the month of February and the signing day that we're going to have tomorrow. Yes, at the high school level, they still have the bigger ceremonies and receptions for the February one, but I have a feeling this stuff is going to flip over to the big signing days being in December in terms of what the high schools do, because, you know, I don't think anyone wants to go and pile in to the auditoriums and gyms twice within a couple months. Maybe they're willing to do that, but it just right now that's not the case. So the upper echelon teams, your top 10, 15, 20 teams, are signing most of their recruiting classes in December because they want to get the fish on board. Okay, they don't want to have someone laying around. Just think about that. It's just obvious that this was what was going to happen. We should have all seen this. If you're offering an early signing period, I don't think any team is going to want to wait that long. They're going to obviously put the pressure on a kid to get ink on the paper and land that kid as soon as they can. So I know the first year teams were doing half of their recruiting class in December, and then someone got smart. A couple teams got smart and started putting together their first 20 or 25 and getting their whole classes in, and then everyone just started following suit. So that's the case. There are only a handful of teams in the top 20 to that really have anything left to be done tomorrow. Basically, you're trying to steal players at this point because I think most of these guys, most of these schools have most of their class already done. We do need to talk about one of the big developments in the Big Ten today, and that was the stepping down at Michigan State. Mark D'Antonio stepping down a day before signing day. Now, listen, I'm assuming that he did this for a very good reason. Maybe a very good reason for him, maybe a very good reason for the school or everyone involved. Who knows? I guess the details of that will come out at some point later. But I'm assuming this was done for a very good reason. Now we're stuck in trying to figure out, is it bad that he did it the night right before signing day? It's absolutely weird. I don't know that that's ever happened before. But would we have rather have had this done the night before signing day or the day after signing day? I mean, which would have been worse? If you're watching this, feel free to comment and tell me which one of those things you would have been worse, stepping down the night before signing day or the day after signing day. But because to be honest, those players that were going to sign with Michigan State are really locked in. I mean, you're not the night before, you don't really have the ability to change. You know, you're not going to flip around now and change to another school the night before you're going to sign. It's just, unless you were a guy who was lucky enough to have options. So you were going to sit at the table in your auditorium or your gym tomorrow, and you were going to pick between, let's say, Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State, and you were going to pick Michigan State. Maybe now you don't pick Michigan State. Maybe you do pick Michigan or you pick Ohio State. Maybe that's the case. But for other guys that were for sure going to sign with Michigan State, and you told people, so you don't really have the option of going somewhere else, well, you're going there anyway. And you already know now that the head coach is going to step down. And we need to understand, and we need to know, and we need to figure out what's going to happen there. Is it just the head coach that's stepping down and the rest of the staff stays? If that's what happens, then that's not so much of a tragedy. You're still going to, most of these guys really connected with their position coaches. And if there was any kind of a bond really formed, typically it was there. Although, you know, some of these head coaches are really the reason some guys come. You know, you could think Saban or, you know, any number of these other coaches, Dabo Swinney. They're big personalities. They're very much involved in getting the players there and landing them. And maybe, you know, as a player, you formed a bond there. But at least if the head coach left and your position coach is going to stay on board, I think you're safe. You're okay still going there. But if we're not sure, and if that's what ends up happening, if that Mark D'Antonio leaving now means that all of these position coaches, or a good portion of them, are going to leave, then now you've got a really sad situation. But I'm here to tell you this is college football now. This is the way that we've got to deal with it. This is what happens. This could have happened tonight, or it could have happened several months from now, or maybe you just got 1 year with that coach and then he gets fired or he decides to leave. This is happening all the time. It's just par for the course in college football recruiting, in college football in general, and you're just going to have to deal with it. That's just the way that it is. So I say it all the time, and I think a lot of adults have said this to potential recruits. You're picking a school. You're not picking the coach. The coach will change. That's just going to happen. The position coach will rotate out of it. He's really good at his job. He's probably going to end up going to another place, unless you're at Alabama or Clemson or one of the top schools right now. If your position coach is really good, he's going to be swept away by another school. He's going to level up. He's going to, and you can't get mad at a coach for trying to push through up the ladder in his career. If he's not very good, then obviously he's going to be let go. So it's a very difficult deal, and you're probably going to lose your position coach. And there's also a chance that you could lose your head coach in college football. It's just par for the course. So I've got to stress this to all of the youngsters that are fortunate to be in a situation of being recruited right now, or are looking forward to the day when they can be recruited, that you're picking the school. The school is going to stay the same. The coaches come and go, and they're doing so with more frequency in college football than ever before. So it's really buyer beware. I feel sorry for all of the Michigan State signees, the potential signees for tomorrow, which I really don't know how many of those are going to be. I don't even know, someone out there knows how many potential signees they had tomorrow. I don't know what those families do. I'm sure some of them are doing late scrambling, getting on the phone, trying to call some other schools and see if there is any interest, if this is a big reason or a big deal for them that the coach is going to be leaving. I know it's not legal because it's a quote unquote dead period, but somehow, some kind of way, if a potential Michigan State signee tomorrow is on the fence, whether they're on the fence or not, I can assure you this somehow, some kind of way, one of the other schools interested in that recruit is getting word to him, and there is some kind of dialogue going on back and forth, asking them whether or not they're sure they want to go sign to a Michigan State team that has an uncertain future. You don't know who that head coach is going to be. And those are just the facts. So you can bet some of that is what's going on. So through back channels, whether that's DMs or, I don't know, by pigeon, text, these rival schools are getting in touch with those potential Michigan State signees, trying to figure out, do they really want to be a Spartan in light of what happened today? So that's a very, very difficult situation. To answer a question posed to me here, is it hard to go from JUCO to D1? It's not hard. I mean, if you're talented, they'll come find you. So finding you is not really the issue. We do need to kind of, time is going to tell here. I posted a very interesting stat yesterday on Twitter that a lot of people seem to be interested in. And let me see if I could pull the numbers up for you. It was a tweet that's now up to 1,000 retweets. So I guess it struck a chord with people. But it talks about the transfer portal. And I think the transfer portal, I'm going to talk about this more in coming days and weeks. I think the transfer portal is having an effect on high school recruiting. And I don't think it's a positive effect. I think schools are opting more for diving into the portal and filling up their numbers and open scholarship spots with players from the portal. The reasons for that is when you get a transfer player, he's been in a college system. If he's played at all, then you're getting a little bit of experience. So you kind of have an idea of what kind of college football player that person is. And so there are some advantages to pulling in a player from the portal. Plus they're a little bit more mature. They're used to college life. And so they're doing that. Some schools are doing it a heck of a lot more than others. And there's not an infinite amount of scholarships that are available out there. So if you're diving into the portal and you're pulling 2-3 players out of there, that's 2 or 3 spots that are not open for players that are in high school or JUCO. All right. because there's already limited spots for JUCO. And we've got to determine what kind of an effect the transfer portal is having on players trying to come in from a junior college. Is it, have colleges flipped around now to this idea of, before we go looking for a player in the junior college ranks, before we sign a player in the junior college ranks, do we want to go into the portal and grab a player there? And that might be some of what's happening. So to kind of answer your question, Justin, it's not hard to go from JUCO to D1 if you're talented, you know, and this happens sometimes. You're a super talented high school football player, but for whatever reason, you couldn't pass the test, you didn't have the grade, so you had to go to JUCO and do your 2 years there because you weren't a qualifier, but you're a very talented player that a lot of teams wanted, then it's not going to be hard for you to go to junior college. If you went to junior college because you were a so-so high school football player and you're hoping to give yourself a little more time to develop, then it's just a matter of did you turn into that kind of player? If you're still somewhat that kind of player that you were in high school where colleges weren't sure that they were going to take you or not, then yeah, it might be difficult. And after doing a year or two at junior college, you really just got to, if you want to play college football, you really got to look at your options. So if going Division I is not there for you, if that opportunity is not there for you, you got to seriously consider going Division II. And guys, or FCS, it's good football that's played there. Sure, you're not on ABC, you're not on ESPN at night, you're not on the SEC network or Big Ten network or something like that. And I know that's what a lot of guys want, and that's what you tend to focus on when you're young, but you got to speed your thinking up and become a little bit more mature and just say, what am I doing this for? Am I trying to get a free education? Then you take that. You take the FCS offer. You take the D2 offer. Am I trying to get to the NFL one day? Well, the trick to getting to the NFL one day is you've got to continue to play. So you may force yourself into a Division I by walking on after doing 2 years at JUCO. And I'm here to tell you, a lot of guys fall out as walk-ons. They think they can handle it, but they can't because you're not treated like a scholarship football player. There will be times where you don't feel like you're on the football team. And it gets to guys. You go from what you were in high school where you may have been a celebrated player, maybe the best player in your team, and everyone you had some kind of preferential treatment, or at least you were just treated as part of the team and you were revered and people liked and cheered for you, to being a walk-on that maybe you won't even eat with the team. You'll have lesser equipment or whatever the things are. There'll be times where you just are not included in scholarship player activities and it weighs down on guys. And then, of course, the cost, you can get swallowed in that. So if you think you're going to go to D1 and say, oh, I'm going to earn a scholarship and we'll just figure out how I'll pay until I get to that point, well, sometimes you just don't get to that point fast enough and you fall off and then now you're done playing. And so if you had any aspirations of playing in the NFL, those are gone because you didn't remember the whole rule of I've got to continue playing. So if that's at an FCS, if that's a Division II, if that's a Division III, you got to do it. And you just figure it out from there. You continue working on being the best player that you can, because I can assure you without looking, there are players on both of those teams for Kansas City and San Francisco that came from Division II schools. They took the long way. They took the circular route, and they got there. And you were watching them, as were billions of people, billions with a B, on Super Bowl Sunday. And they came from a very small school. So sometimes you just got to bet on yourself. And the whole trick is you want to keep playing. So that's the situation. I'm trying to find that tweet that I had just to give you the numbers, just to give you an idea. And if you didn't see this tweet, these numbers are going to be interesting to you. So since August 1st of 2019, so that's basically the beginning of the last football season. This is not all time because the all-time numbers are certainly more than this. But since August 1st, 2019, 1,086 players have entered the transfer portal. It's a lot, okay? That's a lot. And this is Division I we're talking about. 1,086 players have entered the transfer portal. 856 have not been able to go somewhere else. All right, so out of that 1,086, there are 856 players who are still sitting in the portal looking for a place to go. And only 189 out of the 1,086 has been able to find a new home with the Division I team. 41 out of that 1,086 have withdrawn from the portal. Now, I don't know exactly what happens when you withdraw from the portal. At a lot of places, at the majority of the places, once you decide to go into that transfer portal, you're done at the school that you're at. They're not bringing you back. Your scholarship's really terminated with them. They're done with you. So if you decide you want to withdraw from that, they're probably going to spend a little money to send you home. And that's the end of your time with that school. So it's something you really got to think about. But the whole reason that I brought this up in the first place is that you've got 856 players sitting in a transfer portal. So if you're a college and you're going out and you have some needs, you have some, and let's face it, this is why you take transfer players or you take JUCO players. It's because you have a hole in your roster. Your numbers are weak, whether that's because of guys transferred out, they flunked out, they failed out, they left, or they left school early. And you're supposed to have 5 tight ends on the roster or 4 tight ends on the roster, and now you're looking at 1 for spring ball, or you don't even have any. Those are the reasons why you go and find a JUCO player. But now, what does the school do? Because there's 856 players in the transfer portal. Are they now going to go to the transfer portal first and then go to JUCO? We have to examine, and maybe this is something I could start talking to schools about and really find out what is the MO. But I'm really thinking they probably go to the transfer portal first. They probably give a really good hard look at the transfer portal before they decide they want to go to JUCO. And if they're not doing that now, I really think that that's what's going to start to happen more and more as time goes on. So we know it's I don't want to say I know. I feel strongly that the transfer portal has an effect on high school recruiting right now. I think schools have basically reduced their numbers in terms of the amount of high school players they're going to sign, and they leave a few numbers open for potential transfers. This is something that was going on anyway before the transfer portal became a thing. There are a couple of schools I'm not going to name that would keep up, let's say, a pretty significant number open for bounce back players because they were that kind of school. They decided that this is the kind of school that they were going to be. They're just going to wait for guys, very talented players, to screw up at other places, and they would just get those players, and then they would get a really talented player for cheap, basically. That's what would happen. So now that the transfer portal has kind of streamlined transferring and has maybe not dirtied it up so much and has made it easier for guys to leave, I really think schools are going to head to the transfer portal first, and that's going to mean bad news for guys that on the JUCO level. And that sucks. I know it's happening at the high school level. I feel like that's what's happening. And so it only stands to reason that it's going to have an effect on players at the JUCO level. Excuse me. So to answer another question, flipping over to playing defensive back, what are my philosophies on playing press man? I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do to be good at press man, but I will say if I just had a philosophy on it, the most important thing, there are 3 components to press man. They're your eyes, there's your feet, and then there's your hands. And I will tell you that goes in that order. The most important thing when you're playing press man are your eyes. And I usually explain it to my guys like this. If I stomped on your foot and your foot was a little sore, you had a sprained ankle, you could still go and play defensive back. You could probably play press man. You certainly can play press man if you broke your arm. You see guys play with cast all the time. But if I poked you in your eyes and your vision was disturbed, you're not going to play press man. You can't play DB at all. You're not really going to be very successful. So you can play with a sore foot or a twisted ankle. You can play with a broken arm. But if something's wrong with your eyes, you're not playing. So that just stands to reason then that the most important thing are your eyes, followed by your feet, and then your hands. And a lot of guys work in the opposite way, and this is why they're not successful at playing press man, is they want their hands to do everything. They're very limited with their feet. They're not very disciplined with their eyes, and they immediately get in trouble, or they get in trouble very soon during a press man rep, and then they start grabbing, and now they're pulling, and they're out of position. Your hands are to be used after you've done all the right things with your eyes and your feet. Your eyes gauge where a guy is going. Your feet keep you in front of him. And once you are in very good position, now you can use your hand to jam a guy, not grab him when you haven't done the right thing with your eyes and your feet. You've got to be right with your eyes and your feet first, and then your hands come into play, and they're going to be a whole lot more effective. and there'll be less penalties when it comes down to that. So that's the way. If I had a philosophy on press man, that would be it. It's your eyes, it's your feet, and then it is your hands. I've talked about how I feel about the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl at the beginning of this broadcast, Daniel. So when it's over, you can run it back. I'm going to probably wrap up here soon, but I gave my thoughts on the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. Basically, congratulations to them. I think they did a good job. But going back to the press man, what are you looking at? You're definitely looking at the hips, because anything other than that, everything from up here on a wide receiver are lies. Okay, lies. They do this with the shoulders and they turn this way and go the other way. They'll move their heads around, and the head and the shoulders move a whole lot faster than the hips. So to quote one of the Super Bowl performers, Shakira, the hips don't lie. So your eyes better be there, and you better keep them there for a good long time. But for more information on press man, and along with drills and techniques and tips on playing press man at an elite level, again, join the All Eyes DB Camp members area. I'm going to put a link in the description here after this live broadcast. And by all means, it's a worthy investment. It's not out of this world expensive. It's something very affordable for everyone. I've done that on purpose. You can go in there, and I think the library now is up to over 100 videos in there on playing defensive back. Everything from how to play catch technique in the slot, to playing press man, to playing off, to playing safety, to how to play coverages, to tips. I mean, I've thrown it all in there, and I continue to build on that library each and every day. So it's a great place for you to go if you want to level up and take your play to an elite level. So listen, I want to tell all you guys, I appreciate you sticking into the live. I think it's cool that I can just jump on here. Not a big whole production. I can just jump in here and just start talking about what's going on in the day. I'm going to do this every Tuesday. I'd be delighted if you guys continue to join. You share this, and you tell friends. If you're on here now and you're not a subscriber, subscribe to my channel, because not only do I do these weekly lives, I also put out very informative videos on recruiting, and as well as playing defensive back. And I'm going to continue to add to my content here and come up with a whole load of other things that I think will be of interest to you folks that are involved in college football recruiting and also playing defensive back. So go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified when I put a video out. And then also like and share this. Let's get a bigger audience. A bigger audience makes things more interesting, more question, more flow, and we can have fun with this. So for now, thank you guys for watching Gridiron Studs Weekly Live. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.